What's going on, guys? Greg Freak here, and in this video we're going to be talking about who the 2018-19 NBA MVP is going to be. Now first we're going to start off with the honorable mention being Paul George. Now there's going to be reasons why I think the fact he can't win this MVP award, and it's just due to two major things. Now one is it is definitely not going to be the stats of which he puts up. His stats are just been great this year, and that's the reason why he was an MVP candidate with 28 points per game, 4 assists, 8 rebounds, and 2.2 steals per game, leading the NBA, being one of the better defensive players in this league. But currently right now his team is the 8th seed, and I do understand the fact that it is a fluctuating system as far as how close those games are, but it is a lower seed than what they would be expecting. Now the next player that we're definitely going to be talking about who is an MVP candidate would be James Harden. Now James Harden has been putting up amazing numbers with 36.4 points per game, 7.5 assists, around 6.5 rebounds, 2.2 steals. Yeah, so almost the same as Paul George, slightly less, shooting a good 36.5% from 3 and 43, almost 44% from the field. So when we look at that, but of course now we're going to break this down to compare the two MVP candidates, which is going to be in the per 36 stats, which is how long he would get if he played 36 minutes. Now of course his numbers don't change much because he's slightly over 36 minutes per game, but he gets around 35 points per game, 7.5 assists almost still, 6 rebounds, and about 2.1 steals per game. So still very great numbers, and reason for him to be definitely this MVP caliber candidate, just due to the fact of his offensive ability and what he has definitely done. Now they started off poorly to start this year, but have now currently moved up to the 3rd seed in the Western Conference, which is obviously a high stand for them. We know the fact that this team had some good expectations coming into the league, and it really looked like they were not going to hit those expectations until James Harden went off with his, of course, notable streaks that he were going on with the 30 points per game. Now whenever we look at James Harden, we had to note also the notable injuries, with some of them of course being the detractions of the players that they had last year. We can't really put that into a consultant, but these notable injuries are not the total games that they missed, but how many games they've missed compared to James Harden. So Chris Paul with 20, Eric Gordon with 10, and Clint Capella with 11 games. So we can definitely see this is some great as far as his supporting cast that missed out on a pretty good amount of games. So it's definitely something that could go his way. And of course his offensive streaks that were going on, the second longest consecutive 30-point streak in games all time that ended at 32, and he's the first NBA player to score 30 points against all 29 teams, which the reason why we obviously haven't seen this from anybody else also has been the fact that there have not been 29 other teams to face until very much recently. So guys, with those stats, I do want to know, do you guys think that James Harden should be the MVP for this year? As I'm about to mention, of course, the next candidate, which is very obvious as well whenever we think of this being this two-man race, this one being of course Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now we obviously know the fact that it's a little bit different as far as what we're seeing here from this player. Now once we see and look at the stats, averaging around 27.4 points per game, 6 assists, 12.6 rebounds, 1.3 steals, and 1.5 blocks per game. So when we look at this, obviously this standard that we're looking at from here is going to be of course a better rebounder due to his size and length. Of course the assists are the surprising part, being the fact that he's only 1.5 away from basically an NBA point guard at this point as far as where he's playing in his position. But if we look at the per 36, that's when the numbers change, because Giannis does not play that much minutes. So it is 30 points per game, 6.5 assists per game, 14 rebounds almost, 1.4 steals per game, and 1.6 blocks per game. So we're looking at obviously numbers that are moving up and looking more around what James Harden would be making as far as that. Now of course James Harden does have that 5 points per game difference, but here's the major thing that really separates him when it comes to how the media is going to be voting, which is the Bucks have currently the best record in the NBA with a 4-game lead ahead of the second place Toronto Raptors at the moment. Now whenever we look at that, Obviously, we know the fact that record is a huge point of this, and not only that, with the recent expectations of this team, this was not, of course, to be expected at the beginning of this season. Now, there were no notable injuries for this team, and obviously, I can't sit there and say that there's going to be a punishment for this as far as when people are going to be voting for this, due to the fact that the Bucks are not just close to the Rockets, they're outpacing them as far as wins, and everybody in wins. So they're doing exactly what the expectations are. Now, when I say no notable injuries, it's not the fact that they had no injuries, it's just the fact that there's not too many from high caliber players that have missed more games than Giannis. So, guys, with this stats, do you think that Giannis should be the MVP of the NBA this year? And of course, I'm going to give my idea of what do I think that he will win the MVP, or who do I think will win the MVP. I think the fact that the MVP for this NBA is going to be Giannis Antetokounmpo, and it's not due to my name or anything, or the fact that I'm Greek, but here's my real reasons: the expectations and the media's hype. Now, as we all know, Giannis has been talked about as being the next face of the NBA, next to LeBron James, which right there has to make me think the fact that the media is going to be picking for this actual player to be the MVP for this year. And of course, when I think of these two players, you can't really go wrong with either one. Like I stated with Paul George, I think the fact that him being in the 8th seed is really going to make it impossible for him to be picked. But whenever we look at these two teams, we know the fact that this could be it. Now, it's really going to be a determination. If you want a player that was more balanced around as far as the defensive end and the team success, then you probably would want to go with that. But whenever we look at something such as offensive ability and helping a team that was really struggling at the beginning of the year, we could look at James Harden from that fact. So when I think about the MVP, I think the fact you could look at either way. But guys, once again, tell me who you think should be the MVP and who do you think will win the MVP. And if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure that you leave a like and subscribe to be part of the Greek Army today. And as always, this is Sparta.